We now present For the Record.
Welcome to For the Record from the Wisconsin State Capitol. I'm Will Keneally. We start this morning with news breaking late this past week. The Wisconsin Supreme Court has struck down the state's legislative districts, banking a significant win for the Democrats, who are hoping new legislative maps could create more competitive races in the state legislature. We sat down with UW law professor Robert Yablon in the wake of the decision. Here's more from our conversation. So any initial reaction to how this decision shook out?
Well, this is a big decision that folks have been waiting for. It came out today at 250 plus pages of opinions, a majority opinion and 3 separate dissents. And the bottom line, which I think a lot of folks had been waiting for, is that the opinion says that Wisconsin is going to need new state legislative maps for 2024. In terms of the remedy, one thing that is worth noting is that the Wisconsin Supreme Court said that when the court draws new maps and when parties submit new maps, it wants to consider partisan fairness. The court is concerned, even though this isn't a partisan gerrymandering case, that Wisconsin's electoral maps have been significantly skewed for more than a decade. And the court said in today's opinion that as a court, it is supposed to be an impartial, neutral body. And so it wants to ensure that whatever map it ends up adopting does not have the same sort of partisan skew that we have seen in Wisconsin's past map.
If they don't, do anything timely enough to get these maps in place by 2024, then the court will step in and appoint someone to help them draw the maps. Have we seen that before in other redistricting cases?
Yes. So what the court said is that redistricting is first and foremost the legislature's responsibility. And so it's reminding the legislature that it still has an opportunity, if it can reach agreement with the governor, to enact new maps. And the court says, we would like you to take this out of our hands and do redistricting in the way that the Wisconsin Constitution contemplates. But I think the court recognizes that there's a decent chance that the political branches will deadlock again, as they did a couple of years ago. And so what the rulings today say is that we're going to begin a process for the court to create maps. That process will involve the litigants in the case being able to submit proposed maps. And then the court has appointed 2 expert consultants that are going to help it evaluate the maps that are submitted. And the consultants are supposed to work with the litigants on the various criteria, the data that they want them to use. And then we're going to get some reports and some briefing on that. And so that's going to play out in January with the creation of and submission of initial new maps. And then the experts are slated to provide their report to the court in early February.
So it was a 4-3 decision with, as you would expect, the 4 liberal justices all siding with each other, the 3 conservative justices siding with each other. Was there anything interesting from the multiple dissents from this decision here?
I mean, one thing that is somewhat notable about the dissents is that there's only a limited extent to which they take issue with the majority's ruling on the merits, right? This case is not actually a case about partisan gerrymandering. We've kind of thought about our redistricting issues in Wisconsin in those terms, but the legal issue in this case is an issue about the contiguity of the state's electoral districts. And we have this very funny and unusual thing in Wisconsin where more than half of our state assembly districts, almost 2/3 of the state senate districts, they aren't geographically contiguous, meaning that you have different pieces of territory that don't touch each other, but they're put together in one district. And our state constitution says that districts should be comprised of contiguous territory. And the early practice in our state was we did exactly that. In recent decades, we've allowed these discontinuous pieces of territory. It hasn't really been challenged in a serious way. Now it is. And the majority explains why that's not consistent with the Constitution. There's not much pushback on that point in the dissents. In fact, one of the dissenters, Justice Hagedorn, says that he agrees that if you think about the original meaning of the Wisconsin Constitution, it probably does require these contiguous districts. So instead, what the dissents mostly focus on are essentially some procedural grievances. And some of these get fairly technical, but big picture, what the dissenters are arguing is that they think that this all was resolved 2 years ago in the Johnson litigation in 2021. That's when the Wisconsin Supreme Court adopted new maps after the 2020 census. And their view is that all of these sorts of issues about contiguity accountability or other things should have been and were resolved in that case, and that it's not appropriate 2 years later to go back and create new maps.
Wonderful. Professor Robert Yablon, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, great talking to you.
When we come back, we sit down with the state's powerful Assembly Speaker, touching on DEI funding, impeachment, and much more. Assembly Speaker Robin Vos joins us when we come back.
This portion of News 3 Now is sponsored by Madison Gas and Electric.
You're the people who make junk disappear?
We brought a whole truckload of magic.
1-800 junk. I love you.
We make junk disappear. All you have to do is point.
It's here, Wisconsin's newest and most exclusive sports show. Wisconsin Huddle. It's more than just highlights. It's more than X's and O's. It's a dynamic 30-minute weekly special produced for the die-hard fans of Wisconsin athletics. Embark on an exclusive journey into the lives of some of UW's top athletes as we offer an inside look into their world. Watch Wisconsin Huddle Friday nights at 6:30. Brought to you by Ho Chunk Gaming Madison.
Hey, it's me, your dry skin. I'm craving something we're missing. The ceramides in CeraVe. CeraVe with 3 essential ceramides helps restore my natural barrier so I can lock in moisture and we can feel it long after. CeraVe moisturizers.
Rich chocolate candy and creamy caramel. That's how you Rolo.
Smooth dark chocolate, refreshing peppermint. Enter York mode.
Have you heard? Tempur-Pedic sleep is better sleep.
With innovative memory foam developed by NASA, Tempur-Pedic mattresses reduce motion transfer,
Which means less tossing and turning so you can sleep undisturbed through the night. But which Tempur-Pedic is right for you? Come to Denver Mattress and test for yourself. Or get a $300 gift when you purchase any qualifying Tempur-Pedic. And rest easy knowing it's backed by our 365-night better sleep guarantee. Shop Denver Mattress today, your Tempur-Pedic elite retailer.
You're the people who make junk disappear?
We brought a whole truckload of magic.
1-800 junk. I love you.
We make junk disappear. All you have to do is point.
Welcome back. This time of year, we sit down with some of the big political newsmakers here under the dome, and among them, Assembly Speaker Robin Vos. He's the powerful head of the state assembly with a significant amount of control over Wisconsin policy. That includes a deal struck between Republicans in the legislature and leaders with the universities of Wisconsin, trading positions in diversity, equity, and inclusion for much-needed funding. And we start our conversation there. So when we speak to Democrats, who we have obviously, one of course coming before here, they say that this is just essentially a headline. It's not really a win for you. I was wondering if you were still taking victory laps for this deal.
Well, what's ironic is if it was just headlines, you would think they would have said, go ahead and pass it because it won't make any difference. But man, the amount of effort they put in to try to kill this deal. Don't forget, they tried an online petition. They tried to have Governor Evers himself lobby the regents to try to kill the deal. I can't imagine Governor Doyle, Governor Walker, Governor McCallum, Governor Thompson having their own Board of Regents reject what they wanted. So I think it was a good deal for both sides. Look, I think that DEI, which really stands for division, exclusion, and indoctrination, is something that we should all reject. Now, diversity is something we should all fight for. I want to have the best, the smartest, the most capable people applying for any job or any position in the university. But somehow it's become where if you're not the right race, you don't have the right ideology, or you don't say the right things with your pronouns, you're not allowed to participate in the same way that everybody else is. I think those are the kind of things where if they didn't think it was a big deal before, then they wouldn't have fought as hard as they did. So I think it was a big win. It was a compromise. I didn't get everything that I wanted, but that's the way politics is.
All right, and I understand that you want to take it a little bit further, switch it throughout state government. Do you have any specifics that you can offer?
Well,
us?
here's an example. I want to do a complete audit of how we do DEI and diversity throughout state government. So, look, we are so desperate for people to work in corrections. I bet if anybody walks off the street, it doesn't matter what their race or their gender is. As long as they're qualified, they take them. That's how all state government should be. Now, does that mean that if somebody walks in and they are Hispanic or Asian, woman, man, gay, straight, doesn't really matter. As long as they're the best qualified, I want to make sure that's what we use as our criteria. That's what I hope is being done across state government. But if we've gone back to this old outdated model where your race is more important than your skills, or you have to sign some kind of a DEI oath to be able to apply or work in an agency, those should be rejected. So first thing to do is to gather information. That's what we're going to do over 2024, do a complete audit, find all that information out, make sure we're not doing anything that's discriminatory or discouraging good people from applying, and then have the proposal come forward if there's a need be in January of 2025, and make sure that we're doing things right.
So also tied to that deal was that professorship based on kind of conservative economic values. We've heard concerns from conservative students throughout some of the surveys that they've done that their voices are not necessarily being valued as much. When we talk about this idea of indoctrination, isn't that having a conservative professorship kind of enshrining certain ideals kind of going the other way? Is that not indoctrination?
Because here's the way I look at it. Look, the university this week announced that they were going to do scholarships based on if you were a member of a federally recognized Indian tribe. Look, they tell me it's funded by a private donor. So if there's a donor that wants to give $1 million or whatever it is to be able to help Native American students, I might not agree with that, but it's private money and they should have every right to do it on the university campus. I would say the same thing for this conservative professorship. Here we have an institution that's going to go out and raise the money to make sure that we have more than one way of thinking on campus so students actually can see somebody that maybe they agree with, not always somebody who is in the opposite of philosophical world. But it's going to be funded by private sources. Now, if one was funded by taxpayer dollars, I would have an objection to that. I don't think it's right that we should do that, just like I don't think it's right that we should fund those scholarships with taxpayer dollars that are based on race. But the difference is every political science professor, save one or two, is liberal. And we don't have any kind of a litmus test to say you can't be here if you're liberal. But it sure seems like they have a litmus test to say that if they don't agree with them or have the right DEI statement, they're not even allowed to be part of the campus culture. Well, that's got to be fixed. So I want to have, again, the best and brightest teach. I don't care what your philosophy is, from communist to libertarian, right? But you got to be good at what you do, and you also have to be open to other people's ideas. We saw in that survey that far too many conservative students feel like if they don't fill out the survey or the test the way the professor wants, they're not going to get the grade that they deserve. Well, when I was in college, you could write whatever you wanted to, and as long as it was well done, you got an A. That's what I hope we would go back to, not if I don't write it exactly how the professor's worldview is, I fail. So I hope that an awful lot of those things will be rethought in how the university goes through this analysis of their DEI and focuses on saying we want to be a place where everybody can learn and not everybody has to learn only one thing.
Is there a difference, though, when it's the university itself taking on those scholarships, for example? That's an idea coming from their own volition instead of something coming from the state legislature being imposed on these universities?
No, I mean, it's all an idea that any good idea is one that everybody should embrace. I mean, the university should have been doing it themselves. They shouldn't have had to have any kind of a discussion with us. And again, they agreed to voluntarily do it as part of our bigger package. That's negotiations. We gave up some things that I didn't necessarily love. They gave up some things they didn't necessarily love. That's the art of compromise.
I want to turn to impeachment now. We have essentially two impeachments that we're watching out for Megan Wolf and Supreme Court Justice Janet Protasewicz. From your perspective, obviously you've had these conversations within your own caucus. What's the status of those?
Well, first of all, let's start out by saying that I wish that there was a better option to run our elections than Megan Wolf, right? I mean, there are almost 6 million people in Wisconsin. I am positive there are people who are just as good, if not better, than the job that she has done. So I think for the good of the state, it'd be better if somebody else ran our elections. But I will say that biggest issues that people saw in 2020, I think in some ways we've addressed those. Number one, ballot drop boxes. The Supreme Court already said they're not allowed. Those hopefully won't be utilized going forward because they'd be illegal. Number two, we know that the concept of having outside contractors with outside money working inside the clerk's office, we have a constitutional amendment going on the ballot in in April, to make sure that Zuckerbucks and those kind of things don't happen going forward. We have a bill working its way through the legislature on Monday process, where ballots will be able to be processed on Monday in the light of day and then put in the machine on Tuesday, so that by the time we go to bed, everybody knows who won an election. There's no midnight ballot dumps. So I feel like we have already made pretty good progress on a lot of things that people have concerns about, which is why in 2022, we had an election where John Leiber won state treasurer as a Republican, Josh Kaul won the attorney general. Tony Evers got elected governor again, and so did Ron Johnson as our U.S. senator. So most people look at 2022 and don't say it was some kind of a conspiracy or there were problems with it, because we put a lot of these new practices into place. So I want to focus on the future. Like I say, do I think it'd be better if Megan Wolf wasn't there? I do. But when you introduce a resolution and you only get 5 names on it out of 99, that's not a majority of a committee, that's not a majority of Republicans, it's not a majority of the legislature. So I imagine it's not going to go forward unless something changes, because the goodwill that has to happen is by getting the people in the chamber to agree on something, and it's nowhere near that consensus.
Got it. So it seems like what you're saying is that it's dead for right now?
I mean, unless the body changes, there's nowhere near the support. So I imagine that it will go by the wayside as we move forward and focus on the 2024 elections to make sure it's more like 2022 than it was like 2020.
And that's our sit down with Assembly Speaker Robin Vos. When we return, we chat with his Democratic counterpart in the State Assembly, Minority Leader Greta Neubauer. We'll be right back after this.
MG&E, building your community energy company for the future through the power of working together. Committed to cleaner, more sustainable energy, driven by innovation, fostered by shared values. Visit MGE2050.com.
Thousands of our heroes face the difficult choice between keeping their heat and power on or facing homelessness. 21,000 Wisconsin veterans are living below the poverty line, many impacted by physical or mental health challenges. Wisconsin loses 3 veterans to suicide every week. Together, our mission is to provide all struggling Wisconsin veterans with a critical survival safety net that keeps them safely in their homes. You can make a real difference by providing a donation to the Wisconsin Heat and Housing for Heroes initiative, with 95 cents of every dollar donated going directly to those right here in your community. Help by visiting www.heatforheroes.org or by calling 1-800-891-9276. That's 800-891-9276.
For moderate to severe Crohn's disease, Skyrizi is the first IL-23 inhibitor that can deliver remission and visibly improve damage of the intestinal lining.
Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms, had a vaccine, or plan to. Liver problems may occur in Crohn's disease.
Control of Crohn's means everything to me. Ask your gastroenterologist about Skyrizi.
Control is everything to me.
Learn how AbbVie could help you save.
MG&E, building your community energy company for the future through the power of working together. Committed to cleaner, more sustainable energy, driven by innovation, fostered by shared values. Visit MGE2050.com.
Welcome back. As we mentioned earlier in the program, it's been a busy year in the state capitol, from passing the state budget to securing significant funding for cities and towns across Wisconsin. Now, Republicans are in the driver's seat, but there's been room for Democrats to work with them. We sat down with Assembly Democratic leader Greta Neubauer to discuss more about her priorities heading into 2024. Well, thanks so much for sitting down with us.
Of course. Happy to be here.
So I know Democrats are in the minority, obviously, but there's opportunities to work across the aisle, that kind of stuff. Do you have any big legislative wins from this past year?
So, of course, we work whenever possible with our colleagues across the aisle to get things done. We know that Wisconsinites send us here because they want us to be addressing the real challenges that they are facing, and we take that responsibility seriously, despite, of course, being in the minority and not being able to get all of the bills scheduled that we would like to see move forward. So we have had a number of negotiations over the course of this year. Some good bills move forward on things like housing, supporting the Milwaukee Brewers to stay in Wisconsin, and others. And we hope that we see more effort from our Republican colleagues next year to address some pressing issues. There are a number of bipartisan bills that have not moved forward, received a hearing, but there's time left in the legislative session.
I was going to say, after the first of the year, is there anything that you'd want to hit the ground running on? Anything perhaps left on the table that you'd like to see?
Sure, I mean, so many things, but I'll hit on the issue of child care. This is something we've been really focused on over the course of the year. Republicans have not been willing to address the challenges facing our child care industry. Governor Evers was able to tide over many providers with some funds, but we know that those are not going to last for long. And the legislature really needs to take action before the end of this session to make sure that that industry doesn't collapse out from under us. We, of course, know that working families continue to struggle with high costs in Wisconsin and really hope that we are able to get something done there. We still have a significant surplus here in Wisconsin, and it really is time for us to use that to address the challenges that working families are facing.
So we've heard from Republicans on the other side of the aisle related to the surplus that they want to kind of tackle in the new year a new tax cut, a focus on retirees. Do you have a sense of whether Democrats would be willing to work with them on that? Have you had any discussions on that?
Yeah, we haven't seen the details, of course, of this proposal. What we're focused on is using the surplus to support the people who really need it in Wisconsin. Over the course of the year, we've seen Republicans try in various forms to get a tax cut through that primarily benefits the wealthiest Wisconsinites. That is not something that we're interested in. What we want to do is support that tax relief to target the people who really need it, who are sitting around the table, who are looking at their budget and saying, we're short or we're tight, right? And so we are open to proposals from our colleagues on the other side of the aisle that do just that, that address tax relief, again, for the people who are struggling the most.
I want to flip really quickly to the UW funding deal, trading off some DEI positions for that much needed funding. Really interesting to see Democrats in the Assembly mobilize against the regions to have them vote that issue down. Why did you guys take that stance and mobilize quickly?
So we are very familiar with the experience of Robin Vos putting a lot of pressure on us to agree to a deal in short order, right? And in this case, by holding these positions, the raises for employees of the University of Wisconsin back as leverage, right? We know what it's like to be in that really difficult position, and we understand that the regents had a really challenging decision to make, right? Of course, we all wanted those raises to move forward, and thankfully they have now been approved by the Joint Committee on Employment Relations. We all would like to see the engineering building and other projects move forward in Wisconsin. But that just simply cannot be leverage that is used to undermine diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts and the work that's happening on our campuses to make sure that every student is welcomed and feels that they belong. And we just don't think it's acceptable that particularly Speaker Robin Vos is attempting to micromanage the university system, to tell them who they should accept in their freshman class, right? To say you can't do a program to recruit minority teachers. That's not the role of the legislature, and these attacks are deeply misguided and I think are going to have long-term impacts on both the university system and the functioning of government and separation of various elements.
It sounded like the speaker was pretty firm in his stance too. So if there's a chance that the university would not have gotten a better deal, for example, I know there is that lawsuit to unlock some of the raises, for example. But if that was the best deal possible, is that still not something to give up those DEI positions over?
You know, it's, again, a really difficult position for the regents and the UW system. We understand that, but we just think it's really important to continue to press. And what we've seen in this building is that because of the gerrymandered legislative map, Speaker Vos has been able to put entities, you know, the UW system in this case, us, the governor, in really difficult positions. For example, threatening to not allow the city of Milwaukee to get their sales tax, right, and be in a really difficult financial position and extracting really serious concessions through that negotiation process. And so we just think it's really important that we continue to push and that we recognize that diversity, equity, and inclusion cannot be used as a bargaining chip, and that we make sure that the values of the people of Wisconsin are reflected in the negotiations and the compromises that are reached in this building.
So I know you don't necessarily get advice and consent in the same way that the Senate does, but we saw UW's system president, Jay Rothman, be that chief negotiator. Knowing that he came back with that deal, do you have confidence in him being able to negotiate that, those kind of deals going forward?
You know, I hope that we can. I hope that we can all recognize that the precedent that was set here is problematic. We do have Speaker Robin Vos saying that he's coming back, right? He's coming for the rest of diversity, equity, and inclusion positions, and the attempts to micromanage the university that he has made over the years have undermined the strength and the independence of our UW system. I, of course, hope that Jay Rothman is able to move forward and advocate for the university system. And I know that the regents care deeply about the students, the staff, and the faculty at our schools, and again, that they were put in an incredibly difficult position by Speaker Voss. I hope that we are in a very different position a year from now in this building, and that we do not have to have further negotiations where Robin Voss is able to put this kind of pressure on the UW system.
That's from our conversation with Assembly Minority Leader Greta Neubauer. We'll be right back after this.
This right here is confidence in a bottle.
Not only does it change you on the outside, but something in the inside, knowing that you're looking better.
It makes me feel so much more confident than I've ever felt in my life.
They are some of the hottest videos on social media. Those videos claiming to instantly get rid of bags under your eyes. Well, today we're going to see one for ourselves and let you be the judge. It's called Plexiderm, and lifestyle expert Annette Figueroa is here to tell us why she says this one is for real.
This one is for real, and I'm so excited. We even have a video, and you'll notice the model has bags underneath his eyes and some sagging, and all he uses is a small amount on a clean, dry face, and that's how easy it is.
All right, what's the active ingredient?
Okay, so it's silicates that are minerals found in shale rock, and what it does is it tightens and lifts the appearance of bags underneath your eyes in as little as 10 minutes, no prescriptions, and very little effort. Even watching the video, this is a real, it's a model, but it's a real guy with real bags underneath his eyes.
My real true opinion is wholly words I can't say on camera. This is absolutely unbelievable. I mean, I could feel it just lifting my skin. It was amazing. It feels good. Feels great. Looks even better.
And I did this to my father. We were at home, so we applied it to his under eye bags, and let me tell you, we were so excited. In under 10 minutes, they visibly disappeared from view, and now it is literally part of both of our daily routines. He calls me every single month saying, "Hey, Annette, I'm out of Plexiderm, please send me more." And not only does it work on the bags, it works on the appearance of crow's feet, fine lines, and wrinkles. The way you want to do it is you want to have a clean, dry face. You use a small amount because it's so powerful. You have high school reunions, you have events you want to go to, you want to look years younger, this is it.
This holiday season is the best time to try Plexiderm at our startup price of only $14.95. Your solution is at plexidermtrial.com or call the number on your screen.
Welcome back and welcome to the Capitol Rotunda here, where the Capitol tree behind me is lit and adorned with ornaments from children across Wisconsin. Now, the theme this year is 175 years of being a Wisconsinite. Now, Wikipedia tells me that the anniversary is called a Dodran's Bicentennial Anniversary, or 25 years short of being a bicentennial. And that does it for us this week. Happy Boxing Day to all who celebrate. I'm Will Keneally. Have a great rest of your weekend.